But I think there is something here, to really look at all of your life and understand that joy is there waiting for you to grab it. Hello and welcome to Spiritually Hungry. So we were away recently with our family, and my mom was with us, and I needed to open her phone. So I asked her what her passcode was, and she said 3040. And I'm aware that she probably needs to change her passcode now. But I said, why is it 3040? And she said, because those were the best years of my life.
That's so sad.
So sad. But it kind of rings true for a lot of people.
I think so.
And I gave this some thought because I thought I really liked my 30s a lot and 40s. And I think that, it stayed with me, first of all, because is that what life comes down to? There's a lot of isms like, oh, those were the good old days. Or what's the other one that people say all the time?
These are the good old days.
No, they would say those are the good old days. And they would say, oh, those were the best days of my life. In fact, there's songs dedicated to exactly that. And it's sad because obviously that's not how we're meant to live. And so many do get stuck in like a time warp where they're not fully present in today. And they also think they have nothing to look forward to. So the conclusion I came to is because we like newness. We like the novelty of...
Is it new? The excitement of newness.
Sweetie?
Yes.
Let me finish my thought.
I'm just too excited.
So the first kiss, first it's the first step, then the first kiss, the first job, a first love, a first home, a first child. And all of these firsts we get excited about. And after a certain period of time, maybe in our 50s, we think, okay, well, what else is there? I've kind of lived so much of life. There's nothing that I haven't really done. Maybe there's one thing, and that's why there's a bucket list. I want to go to wherever people have on their lists. And that's what life kind of comes down to. So what this is all doing is not to make you sad, but it's to tease the topic of today, which is what is happiness really? And more than that, I think, is what is joy, because happiness is something that is fleeting and it feels good, but we can get happy about a good dinner. We can get happy about winning a lottery ticket. It comes in a high, but then it leaves sometimes just as quickly, where joy is something that's stable and built on consciousness, I think, and perspective, which we'll unpack. But yeah, I think that for most people, that really is how a lot of people explore life, and I was thinking about this too, like when people get gray, if you think,
movie?
No, I'm just saying generally, like when a child changes so rapidly, like puberty, and they're changing and they go through the awkward stage, like you remember like, oh my God, what happened to that child? They were so cute before. And you understand that this is part of growth. Somehow when we get gray or there's wrinkles, it's looked as a negative
I'm
thing.
sure a lot of our listeners don't have any gray or wrinkles
I think
yet.
a lot of people look down at even if they're not there yet.
Right.
So my point is, I think we often focus on the wrong things of what we think will make us happy. And I think most people know that to some extent, but I think there is something here, to really look at all of your life and understand that joy is there waiting for you to grab it.
Absolutely. And when I think about joy, and by the way, it's not coincident that we're talking about this now for our listeners. We're actually in the month of Pisces, Kabbalistically, is the month within which we really set the next 12 months. All of their joy comes from the joy that we awaken in this month. So it's a very opportune time for us both to be talking about it and also for our listeners to be thinking about it.
Interesting enough, though, the month of Pisces, which is where a lot of Pisceans tend to struggle with emotions and keeping their joy up, and that's not a coincidence, right?
Right. I think for me, as I think about it, and for our listeners, joy is the natural state of our soul. So, sometimes we think that I have to go and get something to be happy, to be joyful. I think it begins with the understanding that the natural state of our soul is joy. The natural state of what we call the light of the creator, the force behind creation and the force that animates all that lives, is also a joyful reality. So it's not, I often think it's really important to remind ourselves that what we're aspiring to, which for myself, and I know for yourself, and I hope for our listeners, is to live every day with as much joy as possible. That's not something that we need to be getting outside. It's actually already here.
Well, if you look at a baby, a child, like they're always joyful. I mean, unless they're having a tantrum, they want something.
Yeah,
but like
but
even
their
in the
natural
yoga
state
pose, it's baby pose. They're grabbing their feet and they're like, oh, they're really happy. It's that free kind of curious newness, which is meant to be in every single day. I mean, I think that's why we love dogs so much. They're excited about everything. They're like, oh, it's morning, celebration. A new toy, right. Celebration. So a car ride, celebration. Snack time, obviously, peanut butter. Wow. But really, imagine if we were that excited about every single thing that shows up in life daily.
So I think, because as we said, it should be the expectation for myself, for every one of our listeners, that I can live most days mostly in joy, in the state of joy. But the first truth you have to accept is that your soul is already in joy. The force behind you, what we call the light of the Creator, is always in joy. So what you need to do is really tap into that natural state that already exists. What we are, the emotions that unfortunately we experience are because of what we call the shells or the covering that we put upon our essence, our soul. So for example, when we care what other people think, what that is doing is impeding the natural state of joy that our soul within us is already experiencing. But now we can't experience that because we put this layer on this thought of what other people are thinking about us. And there's so many ways when we act in selfishness, when we act with ego, so many ways with which we cover up that natural joy. But the only way to start to really access it on a consistent basis is to know that it's already there. And in addition to that, if you understand, if you accept that the what we call the light of the Creator, that force that created everything and sustains everything, is also in a state of constant joy, then the only question has to be, how do I connect to that?
Exactly.
And the answer is very simple. It's through transformation and spiritual work. And the Kabbalists would often say, if you want to, and this is an important test, if you want to test yourself as to whether your spiritual studies, path, work is getting where you need to get to, are you experiencing more joy? Not that it's the only goal, but it's a great indication of whether you are actually accessing more of your own essence, your own soul, your own light, and connecting to the endless light of the Creator that surrounds you. Because those two things, accessing the light of your own soul and connecting to the light of the Creator that is all around us, manifest as joy as well as other blessings.
I want to add one other step in that, which for you just comes naturally. So I don't think that you think to put it in, but I know so many people that I work with that really do use the spiritual tools, and they feel happiest and most connected when they are in that state. Maybe they're praying or they're doing an action of sharing, and they feel fully connected. Now, how many hours of a day do most people spend in that state? Maybe 1 or 2, right? Because they have a job or they have responsibilities or whatever else, or maybe just distracted. So the other part of that has to be that your relationship with yourself is just as powerful and connected. I think a lot of people
unpack that.
Struggle with self-worth or believing in themselves or liking themselves. So many people really just don't like themselves. You know how uncomfortable that is to live in your body where you are hating yourself all the time outside of those
I like myself.
2 hours of praying or connecting or sharing. I love myself, but I had to work hard to get there. I'm in speaking this, not only, I spoke to somebody yesterday for an hour. His biggest thing is exactly that. He does all of the work and the tools, and he works so hard. And now his body is sick, and he knows why. It's this negative thoughts and patterns and belief systems that don't serve him. So yes, the work is in that act, right? Those acts of sharing, those acts of praying, those acts of being of service, which of course is internal, even though it's an external act. But the other part of that has to be that internal relationship you have with yourself. And I always say that I am so grateful that I developed anorexia, because if I had not, I don't think I would have understood how far I was from love and acceptance of myself. Instead, it was, the goal was perfection and very harsh and stern with myself. You have to, if you make a mistake, it is the end of the world. And that's really how hard I was for my whole life, to myself, and then of course to other people. So I'm grateful for that. But I think that's a really fundamental step that has to happen also, because at the end of the day, that's who you wake up with. That's who you go to sleep with. That's who you spend most of your time talking to.
Well, this is an important point. So what would you, and this is not really a topic, but it's related.
It is a topic, because I think it's a source of a lot of unhappiness. What would you recommend to
our listeners, those of our listeners who actually have this struggle of liking themselves, loving themselves?
Well, I think it touches upon what you said earlier. I think you have to drown out the outside noise. What do they think? Do they like me? Do they respect me? Do they approve? And instead, you have to turn up the volume, not of your own negative narrative, because that's loud too, but the quiet, the one that's inaudible at this point, that says like, I really want to do, it would be nice if I learned this thing, or like whatever it is that really warms you, lights you up, and then you give that to yourself. So for instance, if you love to dance, but you're embarrassed to do it, well, then find a way to explore that. If you really have a desire to share something with the world, but you don't think what you're saying is worthwhile, practice it. And I think that the safest way to do that is to do it in private to start. So if you love dancing, then go to a dance class that's at a weird time, or get a private lesson if you can, or do it in your house on a video, right? If you love and you feel like you want to express yourself, then start journaling. I mean, that's what I did. I was a writer before I knew I was a writer. And the writing was how I felt, because I couldn't even hear the voice. So that's a really good way to know what's going on inside of you in terms of your disappointments, but also your desires. And then you start to weed those out.
And that brings you, you're saying, towards self-love.
First self-awareness, then self-acceptance, then self-love.
Beautiful.
I think it's really important. And then when you do that, you naturally feel happier, because you're not berating yourself all day long. And you also have a window into what it is that is real and true. When we were away, I really enjoyed getting into some sunshine. I went for a run on the beach, and I always love running when we travel, because it's the best way to kind of like, this is the best place to go for a walk, or this is where the sunset looks the best, or this is the best place to eat, or whatever it is. And I was running, and I was kind of just like looking down. I was looking at people, looking at the sand. And then I looked up and I saw the water, and I started crying, because I was just, first of all, my endorphins obviously had kicked in and I felt euphoric, but I also looked up, and it was just such a beautiful to see the ocean and to feel the sun and feel appreciation. But I didn't just appreciate that beauty. I appreciated my body for being able to do that. I appreciated the fact that I recognized that. And that's the thing, that your body, mind, spirit, they all have to come together, and you have to work on all those aspects. It's not just about prayer. It's not just about change. It's not just about sharing. You have to work on every aspect of your being in that way.
And I think you touched upon a very important point, which is, well, there are two, but they're related. And I believe they're very important. One is that people often think, and you speak about this a lot, that I'll be happy or I will find joy when this, right? Either when this stops.
Destination happiness.
Right. Either when this goes away, when this problem goes away, or this issue goes away, or when I achieve, this
then,
or that.
Right. If this, then.
And the real purpose of life is to be joyful when things are not quote unquote going your way, when you are having that negative experience, for two really important reasons. One, because then you're happy all the time. And that's really, I think, again, another effect of true spiritual work, is that you can get to the place where you're feeling joy, even in situations when others, are not, or would not, or would look at you and say, oh, poor guy or poor woman, they're going through this. And second, because joy actually is the way to get rid of darkness, to get the way to spiritually remove blockages. One of the key Kabbalistic teachings is that joy removes judgment, right? That especially in times when a person is experiencing darkness, it's important to kind of force yourself in whatever way you can. Like you said, maybe dance. These are famous, the prophets, what they would do, they would bring somebody to play live music for them because they knew that the way to get out of darkness is through joy. And sometimes you have to use all kinds of tools. So it's important to understand joy isn't just something that's nice to have or great to have. It actually is a very powerful way to remove darkness.
I have a plaque on my desk. It says, be happy, nothing makes your enemies more upset. But it is to that point, right? Like you separate yourself from all the opposition, all of that kind of like darkness, because now you are in a different state. And nothing has to change other than your state. Right.
And spiritually, we at the Kabbalah Center, we teach about certainty all the time, right?
Certainty beyond logic. I think you coined that.
I did coin that phrase
20 years ago.
That is. Yeah. That certainty, what is certainty? It's when we're going through what seems to be challenges, darkness, we remind ourselves the light of the Creator is behind us, and it is ultimately for my benefit. And one of the great, and this has to be practiced every single day, practice every single day of our lives. But the beauty of practicing certainty beyond logic, as I often say, is that it allows us to experience joy in the darkness, because you want to become a person, like I said, that when you're going through something and people are like, how can you be happy? How can you be joyful? And the answer is, I have certainty this is from the light of the Creator, and it's therefore for my benefit, and therefore I can have joy even in the times of challenge. And the beauty of that, as we said before, is that it also is a tool, is a necessary tool to remove whatever blockages there are, whatever darkness there is.
It's interesting because, we often look to our parents to teach us. I think it's a naive outlook, especially when we're children and we're a lot younger before maybe we are adulting ourselves, but that they'll teach us the ways of the world, how to be. And, I always thought it would be something that you would only look up to. But I think one of the biggest teachings that my father gave me was exactly this. And of course, he didn't intend for it to be a teaching, but he was a self-made millionaire. He immigrated to America. He brought his whole family over, and then he lost it all. And he never got over that in this lifetime. So there was never enough of anything, not a sunny day, not joy, not love, not family, not children. There's none of the goodness in life could give him enough to fill that void. And he always said, I just want this to happen, and then I'll just be happy. I literally would say that. I just want, if I get that big deal, then my life will be good. And we'd be sitting on the couch and he'd say that, and I'd just be sitting there after, and the thought would just kind of stay with me, and I think that it was a big gift for me, not for him, obviously, but for me to, really seize life, because the joy. It never came for him. It never came for him in the end. And I remember feeling a little bit of lack myself, like, why aren't we enough? And of course you can't be enough for anybody, but.
Oh, really? You had that thought then?
Yeah, I was acutely aware of it, even when I didn't have language for it, and I wasn't even studying yet, but it made me ache a little bit. It made me feel bad, certainly sad for him. And then also, but that was my movie, right? I'm not enough. I'm not worthy enough. And then the third part of that was, I'm not going to be like that, So I think the big thing that we're saying is that you want to see life through a lens of choice, right? You can choose what you see. You can choose your experience. You can choose your reality, irregardless of what the facts are. Right? The fact is he lost all of his money, but he hadn't lost his health yet. He hadn't lost his mind yet. He hadn't lost the respect of his wife yet. He hadn't lost the love of his children, and he never did. But, there's so many things that he had that is a wealth beyond riches. So, and it does remind me of a story. It's a famous story of Rabbi Akiva. He tells a story of, it was a story about Rabbi Akiva. So he was walking through a town and traveling, and it was late at night. He needed a place to stay, and he would knock on door after door. It was late in the evening, and asked everybody if he'd come in their house. Can I sleep here for the night? And repeatedly, time and again, for hours, he was rejected. And in the face of this, where would most of our minds go? I'm not good enough. Why did I decide to leave here? Victim consciousness. What am I supposed to learn from this? I mean, we make it so complicated, but no, that's not what he did. He found a place in the field and settled there. And again, most of us would not do that. He appreciated the possessions he still had. He had a candle so he could make light in the dark. He had a rooster. Don't ask me how this list was transpired or why. And he had a donkey for his transportation. And one by one, the
rooster was to wake him up.
Yeah, I guess that was his traveling alarm clock.
Yes.
One by one, he lost them. The wind blew out the candle. A cat killed the rooster. That's why you don't sleep in fields. And a lion ate the donkey. I don't know how the lion came about, but that's what it was. So the point is, for sure, many of us would have been doomed, right? Like,
or
oh my
upset.
God. And also terrified, like, what's going to happen next? Is it me? But again, that's not how he responded. To each loss, with the same words, he said, whatever the light of the Creator does is for good. And later it was revealed that the Roman soldiers had attacked the town that night that he was trying to sleep in, right? All the rejection that he got. And had he been allowed inside of any of those homes, then he would have probably been killed as well. So, of course.
And had the rooster not been killed, he would make noise and the Roman soldiers would have found him in the field.
Nice ad, Michael.
Yes. No, that's part of
Yes, I know. I didn't have that one down.
Okay, sorry.
So, yeah, I think that, and again, in hindsight's 2020, there's that parable maybe also like, oh, you don't know this, you don't know that. And then after, like, yeah, of course that was a good thing. But in the moment, right, you could take any one of those four things, the rejection and all the loss of the 3 items that he had, as proof that somehow there's something wrong with him.
Oh, that's interesting. That's where you think his mind would go. A person's mind would.
Of course.
That's interesting. But I think what that story illustrates is that really the goal of life, certainly the goal of the spiritual work, is in the time of that loss to be able to say, everything that is come from the Creator, and therefore everything is for my benefit, and therefore I'm joyful. Actually, I'm actually joyful. And sometimes I think about, we don't. Sometimes I think this weekend I'm going to talk about this, but that we don't strive high enough in our spiritual work. And what I'm asking our listeners to say, your striving should be the following. And this is true for myself and Monica, for you as well. I want to live every single day in joy. I can. I know that I can. And the way to do that is to get a little crazy with certainty beyond logic, right? To really get to a state where everything that happens in our lives, especially things that we don't want to happen, I am able to honestly say and feel this is from the light of the Creator and for my benefit. Then you will see that it actually is. You'll actually have the merit to see that it is. And more importantly, you'll be living in joy. So I think we have to expand our spiritual aspirations for ourselves to say that I want to, and I will push in the ways that I need to get to that state.
It's interesting, as it seems like a paradox. I think that we have to do that step of really fully loving and accepting ourselves to then release ourselves from, I have to know it, logic dictates. Then you got to get out of the way, right? You got to fully accept yourself and then push yourself way out of the way so that you can experience this magic that we're talking about, the state of consciousness, where you can actually have certainty beyond logic every single day of your life.
Right. And I would add one more element to that, which I think is important. My father's teacher told him that joy is a gift, which means we've spoken in this episode so far about how we need to awaken joy, how we need to push to awaken joy. But the beauty of it, and this is, I think, I find very inspiring, is that all you need to do is awaken a drop of joy. And then ask for the light of the Creator to pour on you and your life endless joy. It's not up to me. And that's the good news. I'm not responsible to create the totality of joy every single day. I just need to spark the joy, awaken a spark of joy, and then ask the light of the Creator to pour on you an abundance of joy. And then you'll be able to experience the type of joy you're meant to have.
I love that, because if you've ever seen a leak, it starts with one drip, one little tiny drip, and then it drips again. And then before you know it, the whole ceiling's fallen and caved in by one little drop of water to start. Yeah.
Right. Beautiful. So we hope that we have inspired our listeners to spark joy and the tools to be able to do that. And then really, again, expand our expectations, spiritual expectations of ourselves, that we are meant to get to a place where every single day we use the tools, we do the spiritual work, so that every single day of our life is an outpouring of joy.
And remember to pause and look at the view because it's beautiful.
So we hope you enjoyed this podcast. We want to remind you, we don't have time this episode to share any letters, but we do read every one of your emails, every one of your messages. Please continue to send your comments, stories, inspirations to Monica and Michael at spirituallyhungry.life, Monica and Michael at spirituallyhungry.life. Make sure to share this podcast with everybody you know. Make sure to go Apple Podcasts and write 5-star reviews and share the light of this podcast, the joy of this podcast with everybody you know. And as always, we hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as we enjoyed recording it.
Stay spiritually hungry.